Welcome back everyone, quick video today. I'm going to show you how to fit one of these. This is a Shimano Toggle Link front derailleur, same as this one on here. So this bike's in for a service, doesn't need a front derailleur, but I volunteered it to be a model for a brand new one. Show you how it's done. Let's get cracking. So this is the R7000 105 front derailleur. Confuses a lot of people. There's a few different bits and pieces on here compared to a normal front derailleur, especially with these screws here, the cable tension, another screw. So they're not quite as straightforward as a normal front mech. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one off, I'm going to run a new cable, and then I'll show you how to set this one up. Brand new one, straight out of the box, not been adjusted. So I'll just whip this one off quickly. So this bike's in for a service, it's getting some new tyres, new chain, new cassette. A temporary front derailleur. In the olden days, you used to be able to undo a screw here and just flex this cage open to get it off without taking the chain off, but not anymore, all riveted. Right, this will come straight off now. Right. That's it, easy. Just pull this boot off the cable. Right. So this one just sits in a liner underneath here, like that. And I'm guessing that goes all the way to the top of the top tube, so we'll have a look at that next. So we just pull that out then. There's the cable. It just drops basically straight out the bottom of the bottom bracket shell. And that clear piece there is just basically where it's guided underneath that shell there. So we'll just replace that with a new piece. It's not a full liner, it's just literally that short section that goes underneath the bottom bracket. And then we've got a barrel adjuster in here. We shouldn't need that now. Well, look at the state of these cables. Jeez. So this bike is getting new bar tape. I'm not going to do that in this video. So when I do that, I'll replace this outer at the same time. So don't worry, it'll be done. And then this cable should just pop out the side of this. Make sure you clicked into the smallest chain ring, and then that cable will literally just pop out the side there, dead easy. The new one just goes through there. There's a little plastic cover on the other side, just pop that off first. It'll just come straight through there. And make sure that sits in its little thing there. Don't just pull it like that, because that's not in. It needs to sit into its housing down the bottom. So just give it a helping hand like that. And there's that cover, it just literally pops out. Thread that back through the housing. And then that just clips in, like that. Make sure you fold this back because it'll interfere with the gear lever otherwise, and we don't need that. Technically you shouldn't need that with this derailleur, but it doesn't do any harm to have two barrel adjusters because the derailleur's got its own built in. And this will just thread through there and pop out the end of the bottom bracket, hopefully. It will. So that just comes out there like that. Seat that back into its housing on the top tube. I'm just going to run a piece of plastic through there again. This is just literally guiding it through here and keeping it sort of weatherproof really, that's all that's doing. And that's that bit. I will be changing the rear cable on the bike, but again, not in this video, it's part of the service. So that's the new cable around there. So I'm just going to take this wheel off, which is easier said than done on this bike, because it has R80 rapid axle technology. I think most people would agree this is probably one of the worst inventions ever come up with, long abandoned, and it will be getting changed out. So there's a through axle replacement kit from Robert Axle Project or something like that. Anyway, they're on order. It's front and rear, so this system here will be coming out. So just got to try and get the wheel out again. It's a bit of a pain in the arse. So it's basically on a quick release, and then you push it in and turn this other end 90 degrees. So this needs to turn through 90 degrees now, which when it's working, when it's brand new it does, but when it's broken like this, there you go, it's not so easy. And this just pulls out just like a normal through axle. Well, the unfortunate looking cable guide. Oh, it just goes on there. Alright, to the front derailleur next, finally. This is brand new out of the box. I actually purchased this from the video sponsor, sportandleisure.com. So with this, you get this metal plate supplied. This is already fitted to the bike. It's just about to fall off, but don't worry, it will hold itself on when we fit this. You need one of these, basically. Otherwise, there's a screw on here that we end up pressing into your carbon frame, which is not ideal. So you need this here, and this screw here on the derailleur will press against that. That's one of the key features of this derailleur. Get your cable out of the way. So same as any other front derailleur, you have this sticker here, and you just line this profile up here until it matches the teeth, basically. You can't really go wrong. It just goes on there like that. Tells you exactly the height of the derailleur. They do a band-on version of this derailleur, which is out there, but it doesn't come with this screw, I don't think. So it's the same, but it's different. Most of you guys are going to have braze-ons like this one. So just roughly mount that on there, tighten this up slightly, and then we set the height. So you can't really go wrong. Just line up these two profiles on this sticker with a chainring. So that obviously needs to go down at the moment. Around about there is going to be good. So we're looking, when the sticker's not here, you're looking for a 1 to 3 millimeter gap between the cage and the top of the chainring there, basically. But this gives you a good guide. Right, don't turn it up just yet, because on a normal derailleur, you would set this so it's parallel. This cage here would be parallel with the chainring. But on this one, you don't do that. You need to set it offset, so this end needs to go inside. I can't really get my camera in there, but like I say, you don't want to set this directly parallel. You want to set it inset like this. So just ever so slightly loosen that off and push this end in, really, like that. It only goes so far because it will basically foul on the frame, really, or the plate, one or the other. And then nip this up when you're confident that's where it should be. So this is still in the right place. We can take this off now, we don't need this. And then inside there, you'll see a screw, basically a 2 millimeter screw inside there. So you need to screw that screw in, and it'll push against that plate or the braze-on plate, and it'll pull this derailleur parallel then. So if I screw that in now, you'll see this end pull out and get itself parallel with the chainring, which is where it should be. Like that. Doesn't need much. That is now completely parallel with the chainring, as you should be. And we just need to connect this cable. So you can pull this cap off for now, it's just a plastic cover, like that. Just pull straight off. And underneath here, this is where the magic happens. It's quite a clever system, this is. This is obviously the cable clamp, it comes in here, underneath there. You'll see this bit here is spinning independently of the bolt. So it's obviously the cable goes underneath there, tightens up, and when you tighten it up, it will basically spin this that way, like that. And then the end of it will fit against this stop here. And then this thing here is basically a barrel adjuster. So once you've set the cable tension nice and tight, you screw this in to set it to its correct tension. Let me show you. First of all, make sure your gear lever is set to the lowest position. Not just on a trim, but the lowest. So I'm pulling that now, and that doesn't go any further. If you've got a complete outer housing, there is a stop it will go in against here. And then this basically goes underneath that silver plate. You might need to just slacken it off a bit to get it under there. Like that. And then you want to pull this quite tight. We have got the adjuster here, and we've also got one in the cable, but let's get it about right first. So pull this at this kind of angle, and then tighten this down. And you'll see that plate there moves in and pushes that in at the same time as doing that. Okay, so that now sits against there, and you've got the adjustment here. Like that. Super important you get that bit right. If this silver bit here is over here, do it again because it needs to stop against this, and this needs to be out. This will screw in eventually. And then we're going to move the gear lever all the way up to the biggest chainring, like that. And then on the gear lever, you need to drop it down one trim position. Don't drop it all the way down to the smallest chainring, drop it down one trim. A gentle click like that. Okay, I'll show you on the lever. So on the gear lever, that's all the way down to the lowest chainring. So this is all the way up to the biggest chainring. And then don't just click it all the way in, you've got a gentle trim position click here. So it's a gentle push, and that's a trim click. If you go again, it will take it all the way down to the lowest chainring. You don't want to do that. So go up to the top and one trim click. That's it. And then the key to this derailleur, if you get that bit right, there's a line here and there's a line here. And these two lines should line up in a straight line. That's what this adjuster screw is for. So we screw this in, you'll see this line move around. And once those two lines line up, when it's in its trim position, cable tension is set. So we're just going to screw this in. You should have enough, hopefully. So I'm literally looking at my camera screen here because it's easier to see. So they're in line there basically. And that's it, that's set. And then if we go to the gear lever now and shift it, that's all the way down, that's all the way up. And then you have a one trim position there. You see the derailleur just move ever so slightly. So that's right up, and that's trim. So when you're cross chaining at the back, that trim there stops you rubbing on the cage. And all the way down, and again, one more trim. This limit screw needs adjusting yet there. So we'll get the wheel and the chain back on now, and then we can look at these screws here, because they're not quite as straightforward as they look, and we'll sort this cable out. So as I mentioned, I did get this derailleur from the video sponsor, Sport and Leisure. So a quick pause just to thank Sport and Leisure for sponsoring this video. So when you're in the middle of a job, the last thing you want is progress to come to a grinding halt because the part you ordered from elsewhere that said it was in stock wasn't in stock. I've been there, done that. A month I've waited, trust me. That's why I use Sport and Leisure. They're UK based, their stock levels are live. If the website says it's in stock, it really is in stock. Order before 3 PM and it will ship the same day with free delivery on all UK orders. If you need it faster, next day delivery is only £2.50. No brainer when you're trying to keep the work moving. So they've also updated the discount scheme for the channel. If you head over to sportandleisure.com/BCR or scan the QR code on screen right now, it'll generate a unique voucher for 10% discount at checkout on your first order. So if you're buying parts anyway, it's a no-brainer. So the link's down below, and thanks again to sportandleisure.com for continuing to support the channel. Let's finish setting this derailleur. Right, so now we're going to adjust these two screws. There's a low and a high. They're kind of like limit screws, but they're not like limit screws. Shimano give it a slightly different description. It's kind of a final cage position screw on the high limit, if you want to call it that. So what you need to do basically is put it back into its trim position where we set this cable tension. So make sure you're in that one there. So that's up and that's in trim. And then put it onto the largest sprocket on the back. It'll go. This bike really needs a service. Right, so that's up there. So I'll try and show you, but it's a bit hard to get one. It's impossible to get a camera in there, but basically we adjust the H screw now, which is this one here. And what you're trying to do is adjust this inner plate here, so it is 0 to 0.5 millimeters away from the chain. So technically you're allowed to touch the chain. So it's a trim position, so you'd never be in this gear anyway. It's big, but don't hit the chain. So that's basically near as damn it, 0.1, 0.2 millimeter gap there. And that's that set. Really hard to show you, but if you've got a feeler gauge, you know, business card sort of width in between there, it's okay if it touches. 0 is touching. That's what Shimano's specification is, 0 to 0.5 millimeters. So basically just skimming it on big, the gear you shouldn't be in. All right, and then you drop it down to the lowest chain ring. And then we adjust the low screw, which is this one here, until the chain is just skimming the skid plate, which is pretty much wedged on there. Now you can see there's actually friction there. So just unscrew that ever so slightly to give it a little bit of clearance there. So I can see about the width of a piece of paper down there really, between the chain and the cage. There's a tiny gap there now between the chain plate and the skid plate, sort of 0 to 0.5 millimeters again. So I can just about see that's about a width of a piece of paper already. So that's them, both of those set. That's all you need to do to those. So that's basically the derailleur set. We just need to deal with this cable now, which is easy. And then we'll run through the gears and make sure it's okay, which it will be. So hook the cable around the top like that, basically. Then pull this cage out and it will drop underneath this plate here. There's a little space for it there. Make sure you pull that nice and tight, and that's where that lives. And then you need this piece of plastic, so just orientate that the right way around, which is that way. Just thread that through there, and this pin here drops through the middle of that bolt and clips in. I mean, it doesn't get much easier than that. Right, so what you need to do now is trim this cable. What I always do is I trim it really short, just enough for an end cap there, because if you leave it out here, what can happen is this can come out of here, you change in gear, and then basically this ends up sort of wedged between there, and it's broken your gears. Okay, so I always cut it really short. So tuck it in there, jiggle it around until it's there, and then we're going to cut that off. I get it, if you ever need to move your gear or your gear cable, you've got nothing left to play with, but a cable's pennies. So cut this as short as you dare, and keep your finger on the back so it doesn't all just ping through the cover, like that. And obviously the critical bit then is putting a cable end cap on there, as tight as you can against that piece of plastic. This is not in Shimano's manual, this is just how I do it, and it's always worked. So that's basically that. So there's no way, like I say, that cable can now pull through there and get stuck onto this piece here. It will stay there forever, and it looks nice and neat and tidy as well. It's not in Shimano's manual to do it like that, but so many bikes come in where this cable's just pinged out and causing issues down here. I think that fixes it pretty easily. Right, let's just run through these gears. There's no reason to doubt these shouldn't be absolutely perfect. Right, let's just run through these. This does need a service. It needs a new chain, new cassette, and a new rear gear cable, so I'm not too fussed about the back gears. These are pretty sluggish. Just going to go for a shift on this front derailleur. Straight up to that top chain ring there. And that's its maximum trim, no rubbing. Okay, we'll shift it up to the largest sprocket on the back now to make this rub, and then we'll trim it down one. Right, so that's rubbing like crazy now, and that's what your trim's for. So just trim that down one, like that. It's pretty much got rid of it. We can adjust that ever so slightly, but if you're running around in big, you're doing something wrong anyway, guys. But you can adjust that H screw there just to fine tune that. And that's basically got rid of that there. Okay, then we'll go down to the smallest chain ring. One shift, and we've still got a trim position left. I'm hoping that it won't go actually to the largest sprocket on the back. So then we're on small, and we've got one trim position here to go down to. which is there. So now we're not rubbing on there either. And they're working perfectly. So that's pretty much how to fit it. I'll just look at this derailleur that I took off. I've got to put this back on again now because it's the customers. And keep in mind for me, this is what they call a skid plate. This piece of plastic here is basically a wear part. So it's just a bit of plastic and it just clips out here, really. So if you have a look at that, this will either be missing or you'll see where the chain's been rubbing on it. It's almost cut it in half. So the amount of these that come in, this is completely missing, or the massive chunk out. You can just change them, guys. They're only like a couple of pounds. In the UK, SJS Cycles, they're fantastic for these sort of things. They steal all the spares. And basically, this just clips out. The pick's much easier. Like that. Like that. That's all it is, just a piece of plastic there, so you can get these as spare parts. So this is an old Toggle one, but you get the idea. It just comes in like that and just basically clips straight back in. Very easy. It's a good idea that they do it because on older derailleurs or derailleurs without that, what you're going to do is wear out the metal there and basically you're going to cut your derailleur in half. So the skid plate does a good job on that. Much easier to fit while it's off the bike, but you really don't need to take it off. You can do it while it's on the bike. It's just pretty fiddly, let me tell you. We just sort of flex it in there and then basically drop in eventually like that. And just make sure all of these are flipped into where they should be, and that's it. That's fitted. Easy. So that's how you do it. Now, I'll do loads of these. I love these derailleurs. Some people hate them. Personally, I think they're fantastic. Once they're set up, they shift so nicely. They really do. And they're not quite as scary as they look, really. So get the basics right, get the height right, get the alignment right, get that little screw right so you're actually bracing it against the frame. Set it in the correct position on your trim position there. Set your H, set your L, hook your cable in there nice and tight. And away you go. Shifts perfectly, as you see. So I hope you did enjoy it. I hope you learned something. If you're not already done so and you enjoyed the content, you know the score. Subscribe button really helps me out. It's really much appreciated. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your day and I'll see you again soon.